September 12, 1958, 11:47 p.m. Big Sam's hands trembled as he gripped the pistol, the cold metal pressing against his fingers. The 50,000. That was the price the five families had put on Bumpy Johnson's head. And the man holding the contract was none other than Samuel, Big Sam, Foster, Bumpy's bodyguard for 5 years, the man he called brother. Tonight, Sam was supposed to betray that trust. The plan was simple: walk into Lennox Lounge, wait for Bumpy to be distracted, one shot to the back of the head, and vanish into the night. Sam moved through the crowd, every step rehearsed 100 times in his mind. But when he pulled the trigger, nothing happened. Click. Silence fell like a heavy curtain over the lounge. Bumpy turned slowly, his gaze locking on Sam's. 5 words, delivered softly, carried more weight than any bullet ever could. "I've been counting on you." What nobody knew, what history books never mention, was that Bumpy had known about the hit for 3 weeks. And the moves he made in those weeks didn't just save his life, they changed the rules of power in Harlem forever. By 1958, Bumpy Johnson wasn't just another gangster. He was Harlem's protector, the man who stood between his community and the predators waiting to consume it. The Italian mob, specifically the 5 families, had been trying for years to dominate the neighborhood's lucrative numbers racket. Millions of dollars exchanged hands in secret, and they wanted it all. But Bumpy was a problem they couldn't solve. He ruled not through fear alone, but through respect. When families couldn't pay rent, he covered it. When police harassed black businesses, he made calls that stopped it. When Italian mobsters muscled in, he fought back hard. Enforcers came and left in ambulances. Negotiations failed. Bribes bounced off. Bumpy Johnson had connections they couldn't touch. By 1958, desperation drove the 5 families to a dangerous decision. Frank Costello, New York's most powerful mob boss, convened a meeting. Representatives from all 5 families gathered. The discussion was simple: solve the Bumpy Johnson problem. Force doesn't work. Money doesn't work. Politics doesn't work. Costello said, voice flat. "So what do you suggest?" Carlo Gambino exhaled smoke from his cigar. "We'll make him touchable. Find the one person he trusts completely and turn them." That person was Big Sam. Standing 6'4" and weighing 260 pounds of muscle and loyalty, Sam had been by Bumpy's side through bullets, betrayals, and personal tragedies. If anyone could get close enough to kill Bumpy Johnson, it was him. Tony Morone was sent to make the pitch. He didn't crack bones, he found weaknesses. And every man had one. August 20th, 1958, 3 weeks before the shooting, Sam was leaving his apartment when a black Cadillac pulled up. The window rolled down, revealing Tony's smiling face. "Big Sam, right? 5 minutes. Hear me out." Sam instinctively reached for his .45, suspicion in his eyes. Tony didn't flinch. He opened a briefcase. Neat stacks of 100 bills. A 50,000, enough to cover Sam's daughter Kesha's medical bills, enough to relocate the family somewhere safe, somewhere clean. All he had to do was one thing: shoot Bumpy Johnson. Sam's jaw tightened. Kesha had been sick for 6 months. The hospital bills were crushing. He had asked Bumpy for help before, receiving 2,000, but it was never enough. Tony laid out the plan again. One shot, clean and quick. New identities, a fresh start in Miami. "Half the money now, half later." "And if I say no?" Sam asked quietly. Tony's smile faded. "Then your daughter dies slowly in that hospital. You keep working for Bumpy, knowing a bullet will come for you. That's life. The only question is whether you die poor or rich." The briefcase stayed on the seat as Sam walked away. That night, sleep eluded him. Kesha's face haunted him. Her labored breathing, her attempts at a smile through the pain. 3 days later, Sam called Tony. "I'm in," he said, negotiating for half the money up front. But what neither Tony nor Sam knew was that Bumpy had already been informed. Bumpy had eyes everywhere: bartenders, shoe shiners, cab drivers, janitors. One of them, a parking attendant named Jerome, had seen Tony's Cadillac outside Sam's apartment and reported it. Bumpy had known everything before it even began. Instead of acting immediately, Bumpy planned. He didn't eliminate Sam. He decided to teach him a lesson. He contacted Victor, a gunsmith who had worked for him for years, and asked him to make a gun that looked perfect but didn't fire. Within 3 days, Victor delivered a dummy .38 special that matched Sam's weapon exactly in weight and feel. Now, Bumpy had to swap the guns without Sam noticing. On September 8th, while Sam ran an errand across town, Bumpy and his trusted associate Illinois Gordon entered Sam's apartment and replaced his real gun with the dummy. The stage was set. September 12th, Lenox Lounge. The club buzzed with live musicians, hustlers, politicians. Bumpy sat at his usual corner table, fedora beside him, sipping Hennessy, discussing Sugar Hill housing with city councilmen. Sam arrived, nerves tight, .38 special in his jacket pocket, ready to claim the money. He approached Bumpy's table, moving through the crowd like he had a right to be there. Sam's hand shook as he raised the gun. The bartender caught a glimpse, eyes wide, but too late. Sam pulled the trigger. Click, silence. Conversations died mid-sentence. The jazz band froze mid-note. Bumpy didn't flinch. He took a slow sip of cognac, then turned to face Sam, disappointment in his eyes. "I've been counting on you," he said softly. Those words struck harder than any bullet. Sam realized everything. Bumpy knew. He had known the money, the plot, every detail. And he had let Sam reveal himself in front of 300 witnesses, destroy his own honor, and learn the truth the hard way. Sam sank to his knees, overwhelmed. "I'm sorry, God," Bumpy interrupted, voice calm but carrying through the silent room. "I know about your daughter. I've known for 6 months. You think I don't take care of my people?" He handed Sam an envelope. Kesha's medical bills were paid, plus $5,000 for the family. Bumpy continued. "I needed to know if you'd choose money over loyalty. Now I know. You're leaving Harlem tonight with your family. If I ever see you again, there won't be a second chance. And when the Italians ask, you tell them exactly what happened. You tell them Bumpy Johnson knew. He always knew." Sam left that night, broken but alive, carrying the weight of his betrayal. Bumpy turned to the room, raising his glass. "Harlem isn't for sale. It never was. Respect can't be bought. Remember that." The room echoed with toasts. The jazz resumed. Life went on, but everything had changed. By morning, the story had spread like wildfire. Mobsters from Boston to Baltimore knew you can't outsmart Bumpy Johnson. The 5 families called a meeting, realizing that Harlem belonged to him. Force failed, money failed, betrayal failed. Bumpy Johnson remained the undisputed king of Harlem. He lived another 10 years, passing away in 1968 from a heart attack in the same Lenox Lounge where he had faced Big Sam. But the lesson remained. The deadliest weapon isn't firepower, it's knowing your enemy's next move and turning their plot into your triumph. After Sam left Lenox Lounge that night, a heavy silence hung over the room. The crowd of 300 slowly began to murmur, whispering to one another in awe. They had just witnessed something extraordinary. A man attempted to assassinate Bumpy Johnson, and Bumpy had turned the act of betrayal into a lesson in power and loyalty. The jazz band cautiously resumed playing, but the energy in the air had shifted. Everyone present knew they had seen more than a simple showdown, they had seen history in the making. Bumpy remained seated at his table, the calm in his eyes betraying nothing of the storm that had just passed. His gray suit was immaculate, his fedora perfectly in place, and his glass of cognac now empty. Yet in that quiet authority, he radiated a power that demanded respect. People leaned in closer to hear his words, even as he spoke softly. "The Italians think they can buy us," Bumpy said, scanning the room. "They think they can divide us. They think they can take Harlem because we're poor, because we're black, because we don't matter. They're wrong. Harlem isn't for sale. It never was, and it never will be. The message was clear, and it resonated beyond the walls of Lenox Lounge. By the next morning, word had spread throughout New York's underworld like wildfire. Every gangster, every mobster from Boston to Baltimore, knew exactly what had happened. Bumpy Johnson had not only survived an attempted hit, but had also made a traitor expose himself in front of hundreds of witnesses, without spilling a drop of blood. The 5 families convened an emergency meeting the following day. Frank Costello, furious at the failure, demanded answers. Tony Morone's blunder had cost them not just 50,000, but also the credibility of the mob's intimidation tactics. Carlo Gambino, however, remained calm, his mind racing with calculations. "We can't beat this man," he said quietly. "We've tried every tactic, force, money, betrayal. Nothing works. Every move we make, he's already 3 steps ahead. We leave Harlem alone. Focus elsewhere." Harlem belongs to Bumpy Johnson. It was the first time the 5 families had ever relinquished control of a territory without firing a shot. But Bumpy Johnson had made them understand something that couldn't be taught with bullets or bribes. Power wasn't just about fear, it was about knowledge, strategy, and the ability to anticipate every possible outcome. Back in Harlem, Bumpy's reputation soared to near mythical levels. People whispered his name with reverence, passing down the story of Big Sam's betrayal and Bumpy's countermeasure from generation to generation. It wasn't just a story of survival, it was a lesson in loyalty, foresight, and the true meaning of respect. Even Big Sam, who had fled to Detroit to escape the shame and guilt of his actions, carried the weight of that night with him for the rest of his life. He took construction jobs, tried to live a normal life, but the memory of Lenox Lounge haunted him. Every time he thought of Bumpy's calm eyes, the words, "I've been counting on you," reverberated in his mind, a reminder of the man he had failed and the lesson he would never forget. Bumpy, on the other hand, returned to his corner table at Lenox Lounge as if nothing had happened. The King of Harlem had not just survived, he had triumphed. He continued to protect his community, using his influence to shield it from both mobsters and corrupt officials. When families were threatened, Bumpy was there. When businesses faced harassment, Bumpy intervened. His network of trusted associates, informants, and allies was unmatched, and it ensured that Harlem remained under his control. But beyond the immediate victory, that night had changed the dynamics of organized crime in New York forever. The 5 families learned an unprecedented lesson in humility. They realized that some power couldn't be bought, manipulated, or coerced. Loyalty, strategy, and intelligence mattered more than muscle or money, and Bumpy Johnson had mastered all 3. As the days turned into months, the repercussions of Lenox Lounge rippled through Harlem and beyond. Bumpy's network became even more vigilant. No conversation was ever off limits, every move was calculated, every person monitored. The lesson was simple. Betrayal could happen anywhere, even from the most trusted ally. And when it did, it had to serve a purpose greater than revenge. It had to reinforce authority and respect. Bumpy's methods were methodical. He never allowed anger to cloud his judgment. Every encounter, every confrontation was part of a larger game. He had treated Sam not as an enemy, but as a test. Sam had failed, but the way Bumpy orchestrated the failure reinforced a powerful lesson for the rest of Harlem. It was a reminder that betrayal could be exposed without violence, that intelligence and patience were deadlier than a loaded gun. Harlem's residents noticed the change immediately. Local business owners, once intimidated by Italian enforcers, now felt protected under Bumpy's watch. Children grew up hearing tales of his strategic brilliance. Neighbors, street hustlers, and local politicians alike recognized that Bumpy's authority was absolute, not because of fear, but because of earned respect. Even within the underworld, Bumpy's reputation was solidified. Mobsters from other boroughs knew better than to attempt operations in Harlem. They whispered about the dummy gun, the staged betrayal, and the audacity of letting a would-be assassin act without consequence. Bumpy had turned an assassination attempt into a masterclass in psychological warfare. But the story of Big Sam's betrayal also served as a personal lesson for Bumpy. While he was always cautious, he understood the fragility of loyalty. People had weaknesses, everyone did, and part of power was recognizing those weaknesses before anyone else. It wasn't enough to react, one had to anticipate. One had to move several steps ahead. Bumpy continued to expand his influence, balancing both benevolence and ruthlessness. His neighborhood thrived under his protection. Families paid rent, businesses flourished, and the streets were safer. Yet, he never allowed himself to become complacent. Every day, he reinforced his network, ensuring he remained untouchable. His intelligence network extended to every corner of Harlem, from shoe shiners to cab drivers to ordinary citizens who reported the comings and goings of outsiders. And as the years passed, Bumpy Johnson became more than a gangster, he became a legend. Stories of his exploits were told in hushed tones across Harlem, in jazz clubs, and in alleyways. His ability to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast rivals made him an icon. Big Sam's story was retold as a cautionary tale. A man can be loyal, but even loyalty has limits, and betrayal always comes with consequences. Despite the intense pressures and constant threats, Bumpy maintained a sense of the dignity and control. Every decision was measured, deliberate, and calculated. He understood that true power was not just about surviving the present, but shaping the future. And his victory at Lenox Lounge wasn't just about thwarting an assassination. It was about defining the rules of engagement in Harlem. Even as Bumpy aged, his strategic mind remained sharp. By the time of his death in 1968, he had not only survived numerous assassination attempts, but had also solidified a legacy that would endure long after his passing. He died of a heart attack, ironically in the very lounge where he had faced down Big Sam 10 years earlier. But his death did not diminish his legend. The lesson of that night, and indeed of his entire career, was clear. Power was about foresight, patience, and respect. Violence was a tool, but intelligence was the weapon that defined leaders. Bumpy Johnson had taught Harlem, and the world beyond, that anticipating your enemy's moves and turning their schemes into your advantage was the ultimate victory. Big Sam's life after that night was a shadow of what it could have been. He had taken the money, fled, and attempted to build a new life. But the guilt of betrayal never left him. His story became intertwined with Bumpy's legend, a reminder of the cost of choices and the weight of loyalty. Meanwhile, Harlem flourished under Bumpy's watch. The neighborhood wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Businesses prospered, families found security, and the streets were alive with the sounds of jazz, laughter, and community. Bumpy's vision extended beyond protection. It was about legacy. The King of Harlem ensured that his people were safe, respected, and empowered. And so, the story of Big Sam and Bumpy Johnson became more than just a tale of betrayal and survival. It became a blueprint for power, a lesson in strategy, and an enduring symbol of loyalty and foresight. Bumpy's ability to see 3 moves ahead, to anticipate every betrayal, and to turn threats into lessons solidified his place not just in Harlem but in history itself. Even today, decades later, the story resonates. It's a reminder that true power isn't won through intimidation alone, nor through money or brute force. True power lies in knowing your people, understanding your enemies, and always being 3 steps ahead. Bumpy Johnson lived that principle every single day. Big Sam learned it the hard way, and Harlem never forgot it. Bumpy's legacy remains a lesson for anyone who seeks authority. Respect is earned, loyalty is priceless, and intelligence is the deadliest weapon of all. Lenox Lounge wasn't just a club that night, it was a classroom, and Bumpy Johnson was the teacher who showed everyone exactly what mastery of power looked like. The city never saw another gangster quite like him. Even in death, his story inspires strategists, leaders, and storytellers. And as the jazz plays on, as Harlem continues to thrive, the memory of that night, the click of a trigger, the calm eyes, and the words, "I've been counting on you," echoes forever. Bumpy Johnson wasn't just a man who survived an assassination. He was a man who turned betrayal into legend, who taught the streets that foresight and wisdom outweighed violence, and who showed that loyalty, once earned, could never be bought. That night, Big Sam's betrayal became the foundation of one of the greatest lessons in power Harlem, or the world, would ever witness.